Mr. Speaker. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to follow the Honourable Member. And I have to say, I pay tribute to DUP for bringing forward this very important debate. And I say this as somebody who comes from a Muslim background, whose father was an imam, and looking at the topic persecutions of Christians in the 21st century, I think it's absolutely right and proper to have this debate because it's important for the world to accept it goes on. Speaking to a very good friend of mine, the former Bishop of Rochester, Bishop Michael Nazir Ali, on this very point, and he said to me, out of 190 countries, in 130 countries, there's persecutions of Christians in the world at the moment. It is completely and utterly unacceptable. It's a very sad state of affairs. And that's why, when I thought about on which area should I focus on, it was very difficult, because the area is so wide, because there's persecution in over 130 countries. Which country do you pick? Because so much goes on. But what I did, Mr. Speaker, I narrowed it to a country which I know well. I was born in Pakistan, and I had a great privilege and a pleasure and an honour to serve as an advisor to the former Pakistani Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, who herself lost her life, who wanted reform, who wanted a progressive Pakistan, but the radicalisation elements and certain other elements did not want that to be the case. That's why, for me, when I looked at the topic, persecutions of Christians in the 21st century, it had to be Pakistan, because it is a major problem for the Christian community in Pakistan. And the point which I want to focus on is the blasphemy laws in Pakistan. Looking at an article which I read in class, published by a journal looking at the persecutions of Christians in Pakistan and abroad, this is what they said. They said the blasphemy law is at the moment a root cause of much of suffering and persecution of Christians in Pakistan. The use and abuse of this law is the fundamental issue underpinning discrimination and open violence against Christians and local churches. Of course I give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
And obviously he can speak about this because of his knowledge of his own country, but will he also accept that even when Muslims stand up for Christians in Pakistan, they put themselves at risk? Indeed, the governor of the Punjab, when he stood up for and visited a Christian girl in jail, finished up being murdered by his own bodyguard. That's right.
I say that to the Honourable Gentleman. I know more on that issue than many others. So I lost my good friend and somebody who I worked for, Benazir Bhutto, to radicalisation, 2 weeks away from winning an election where things could have changed. We discussed reforming the blasphemy laws, but we could never do that. She could never do that, because that's the problem which the Honourable Gentleman highlights very well, happens in Pakistan. The case of the Governor of Punjab, Salman Taseer, he raised the case of Asia Bibi, the Christian 46-year-old mother who has 5 children, who is still in prison in Pakistan, who was supposed to be pardoned by the President in 2010, but due to the pressure from the radical right, she was never freed. Totally unacceptable. Pope Benedict said what happened to Asia Bibi was unacceptable and called for her release. However, she is still in Pakistan at the moment facing the death penalty. And it's on that very point, people in Pakistan do stand up for it, however, knowing what the dangers are. But what I would say to the Honourable Gentleman, because I was going to come to this later on, is that that does not mean that the government of Pakistan cannot stand up and do the right thing by repealing a bad law. The bad law is the blasphemy law and the abuse of the blasphemy law, which has to be dealt with. For example, if I may say to colleagues here, is this. One of the big factors which is related to the blasphemy laws in Pakistan is that it's used to settle disputes between one neighbour and the other under the sections which were brought in between 1980 and 1986 by General Zia, who himself was a radical. He was an extremist. He brought those sections in. He brought in the section which said if you defame the prophet, you have to be killed. Totally unacceptable. Totally and utterly unacceptable. But those are the clauses which were brought in under the blasphemy section in the Zia era, which have to go. In my view, they're bad law. They have to go. The government should do it, can do it. But the point which the Honourable Member raised earlier is that these governments themselves have the pressures. In the sense, they stand up, like the Minister for Minorities, Shahbaz Bhatti. He said it was wrong. A Christian minister, minorities minister, said it was wrong. What happened to Shahbaz Bhatti? He was killed. What happened to Salman Taseer, the governor of Punjab? He said it's wrong. He was killed. So one has to understand the difficulties with these governments in changing these laws, but they have to, in my view, change these laws. And of course I give my way to the Honourable Gentleman.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. I've listened with great care to the debate because, of course, it is to a certain extent the policy that I supported in the FCO, which is the subject of a certain amount of the criticism. Could I put it to my honourable friend that what he's touching on is very important, in that it's about the pressure of culture on governance. And this is present not only in Pakistan but in a number of other Arab countries, which makes it so difficult for governments that would like to respond in the manner which we all wish to see, to do so because they are frightened, sometimes to death, by their populations. And that what we're talking about today is as much an issue of culture that needs to change as governance, and we all wish it was an easier problem to solve than it appears to be.
I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for that very important comment. But before I answer that, can I thank him for the work he did when he was a Foreign Office Minister, especially in the Asia Bibi case, the representations he made to the Governor of Pakistan and the High Commissioner Adam Thompson in Pakistan, who I've spoken to on this. So I thank him for all the hard work he has done on this. In relation to the point he raises about the culture, how one deals with that, I think a significant part of that is about changing hearts and minds. And that's linked to the aid that we give to certain countries. If it's used rightly, if it's used properly, you can deal with the issue of changing hearts and minds in that respect. Moving back to the blasphemy laws in Pakistan, this is what Amnesty International said. They said the blasphemy laws in Pakistan are a form of religious persecution and that they should be repealed. I totally and entirely agree with every word that has been said on that very point. Yes, of course I give way.
Honourable Gentleman Speaker, an absolutely fantastic speech, and I congratulate him very, very sincerely on that. But isn't the message that's coming quite strongly from his speech is that when persecution takes root, and whether it's a persecution aimed at any particular group, the ultimate end of that persecution is that a number of people that were never imagined in the beginning in society are then persecuted. And the persecution extended so far in Pakistan, as he well knows, to the death of his friend Benazir Bhutto. That was, in some ways, an endpoint to that very sad persecution. It went everywhere.
Grateful to the Honourable Gentleman on that very point, and he's absolutely right. So I have nothing further to add on that, but he is absolutely right in what he says on that very point. So apart from repealing the blasphemy laws in Pakistan, because that may take time, what can we do at this very point in terms of pushing the government of Pakistan to deal with the blasphemy laws? In my way, and in my view, in line with many others, the Pakistan's ambassador to the United States has also made similar comments, and so has Bishop Michael Nazir Ali. And this is what he says, and this is what I say. Firstly, when it comes to blasphemy laws in Pakistan, they should not be dealt with by the lower courts in the country, because those lower courts are more susceptible to corruption, intimidation by religious groups in those communities. Secondly, there should be specialised prosecutors who deal with blasphemy laws in that country. Thirdly, there has to be specific judges who deal with blasphemy laws. The reason I say that, I was in Pakistan last year, and by chance I was flying from Karachi back to Islamabad, and I met 12 High Court judges and a Supreme Court judge, and we had certain discussions. And I said, can I raise certain points? And they said, yes, of course. I said, can I raise the point about blasphemy laws and in Pakistan? And they said, of course. I said, why are blasphemy laws abused in Pakistan? The High Court judges said to me, no blasphemy law is abused in Pakistan. If that is the mentality of judges at the High Court in Pakistan, what hope has anyone have of justice in that country? That's why I say have specific judges who are trained to deal with blasphemy issues, who should deal with these cases. The other point I think should happen is that there should be a body in the Ministry of Interior which authorises prosecutions. And that way, it is not subject to intimidation at any local level. Cases have to go, if there are allegations, to the Ministry of Interior, specific cell to do with blasphemy laws. If they authorise it, then there should be a charge after that. And that way you deal with some abuses which are going on at the moment. In my view, that goes some way, but there may be other ways which other people may have to deal with those cases. The other one I would say is that the President and President Sadari could have done it in 2010. I know well, I raised it with him. He wasn't able to do it. in the pardoning of Asia Bibi. Because remember this, we all have our own separate faiths and our beliefs, and everyone, each and every one of us, is entitled to have that. Think about Asia Bibi, 5 children, 46, languishing in prison for 4 years, condemned to death by a lower court, not knowing when their appeal is going to come or not. Is that a civilized world? Is that right? Is that proper? If it happened to one of us we loved, absolutely not. That's why I would say the government of Pakistan, under a new president and a prime minister, has a moral obligation to do the right thing, and in this case, ensure that Asia Bibi is released and pardoned. Finally, I have not much long time on this, is that those who are persecuted for their faith, when they seek asylum at other countries, in my view, they should be given a priority, irrespective of faith. If it's because they're persecution of their faith, because sometimes when you are being persecuted, if you go back outside, you'll be shot, if it's the blasphemy laws. So seeking asylum and be given priority of people who are being persecuted on faith, in my view, would be the right way. Thank you.